Hello there, and welcome to Health Second Opinion. Dr. Chad here with you, and hoping to excite you about where your health compass is and help you get headed in the direction that you want to be. Because just like if you were traveling to go someplace, you have to be pointed in the right direction, otherwise, you're never going to get there. And I think that there's so many similarities that we can draw as we constantly do between the world, life, and health, and how inspiring they can be because of how fearfully and wonderfully we were made, and just the amazing things that our bodies are constantly doing in a subconscious manner. And that's the awareness of the fact that, just like subconsciously, I'm always been a Georgia fan. And that's where I graduated from school for my undergraduate before going on to Life Chiropractic School in Atlanta. So we don't usually have as much to celebrate as we do this year. So definitely enjoying these moments. And that subconsciously creates this positive state of mind to which helps me reflect onto the impact that our mindset has upon the decisions that we will make on a daily basis in the direction of health and life. And therefore, it's always awesome to think about the big things, the big picture, and how our subconscious mind is constantly working and controlling our bodies, yet we are perceptively completely unaware. Just like our bodies are completely perceptively unaware that the earth is rotating at about 1,000 miles an hour, that the earth is traveling around the sun at 67,000 miles per hour, and the sun is moving through the Milky Way at 448,000 miles per hour. So the sun is traveling. We are traveling around the sun, and the earth is spinning on its axis that is not just level all the time, it's on a tilt. And then it's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. And we are not consciously aware of this. Yet this is the world that we live upon. This is where we make all of our existence. This is how God created the universe and the world, and we are existing here without perception of it. And just like there are just as many things going on in the internal body, like the heart beats 100,000 times a day, pumping over 2,000 gallons of blood. You're breathing approximately 11,000 liters, which equals 2,906 gallons of air a day, just during normal activity, not to mention when you should be exercising, which we're going to talk about today, helping point your compass. And then food is passing through at least 15 feet of intestines, this all just being in the average human being, to which a lot of the research today, and it's changed over years, is the person is approximately 5'5", and unfortunately at that height, 180 pounds. And so this is just the world in which we're measuring our stats on, and it creates a level of this lack of health that allows us to have the worst health standards and the worst health standards for a healthcare system here in America, which is the reason we need these shows. And the reason that I put the effort into it is to inspire you to be the change that you want to see in the world. You can be the new measuring stick and press on a level of expectation of a great health and great life to your friends and to your family, to your church, to your work, if you are measuring the right things, thus keeping your compass pointed in the direction and you traveling in the direction that you want to go. So what is that? What do you want? Most people want to feel good, want to look good, go to the beach once or twice a year. And then, it's about as far as we measure it. Other than that, they might say, well, I just don't want any symptoms. Then it gets a little deeper. I don't want to be on any pharmaceutical drugs. And levels. Where are you? What do you want? And if your expectation, your mindset that will determine your measurements, which will determine your actions and your will to achieve, then we have to measure. We have to think about it. We have to pick our paradigm. And right now, we're seeing a world that is flooded with people who have died because of an extra stress that is just exacerbated. It showed them that their cumulative survival potential was not what they thought it was. When challenged with the virus that's been going across the globe in continual different forms, it's shown us that the margin for error for many people was very thin. And it was this thing that I think is so amazing, that the research that I spoke about last week and the research that's out of the UK about exercise in prevention of death or hospitalization, and also sugar reduction and its ability to prevent in 9 days, as little as 9 days, restriction of high fructose corn syrup and sugar in general, improving outcomes in COVID infections in as little as 9 days. So these things, we talked about the stats of that. So if you want that information, please go back to the last week. But we look at this compass and where we're going. And I apologize, I got excited about all those the stats and the things and trying to recall all of that here, and kind of lost my place a little bit. But as we move towards this mindset change, and we're picking what we are going to measure, we have to understand that if we're not measuring it, we can't change it. And that we have these perceptions about our health that can create margins for error that are very, very small. And if we are going to improve our cumulative survival potential for anything, we must measure the things that improve our health and not base it on how we feel. And I talk in my doctor's report all the time to every new patient that comes in the office that I'm on your team. And my job is to be on your team and be the persons that helps you measure the things that are relevant to get the outcomes that you want. And if your mindset is to have the best life and the best health experience here on earth so that you can accomplish the goals in the best manner that God intended for you, then I'm the guy. But if you just want to feel better, please go somewhere else, because you're not going to get what you want. And it's going to be disappointing and you're going to waste your money, because my job is to help get you to 100% health. My job is to assess those things that determine how well your body is functioning. And number one is your mindset. And you either agree or disagree with the fact that that is the methodology to which you want to address your life and your health. And if that mindset does not resonate with you, please log off. If it does, forward this to your friends, because until they know that the teammate, the coach, the whatever you want to call it, is available and local, they don't know that it can happen for them. That's why we're a mission-based office. That's why I do the show. It's all about providing the potential. That's the mindset. So what are we going to do to implement it? Number one is say that you are open to the changes that you most know you need to do, right? It's like oftentimes I'll go to conferences and I'll write down all these things. We've got a conference coming up and it's going to be awesome. And I go and learn something and become a better person and a better husband and a better parent, everything, better chiropractor every time I go. And I come back, so I'm excited about that. And I think that number one, you should have those things programmed into your life that are meant, whether it be a marriage retreat or a church retreat or a whatever in your profession, a professional retreat that helps develop you. Number one, you're worth the effort, you're worth the time. So plug those things in a way that create a life of continual improvement, and saying that you are open to the change. You're open to understanding what you don't know. Because, I mean, remember, we're on that ball that's rotating 1,000 miles an hour while traveling 67,000 miles an hour around the sun, while the sun is traveling 448,000 miles an hour through the Milky Way. And you don't perceive it. But you also don't perceive the fact that your heart's beating 100,000 times a day, pumping, a couple thousand gallons of blood. So all of these things going on subconsciously. And so what are you going to do to start the development? And hopefully that means getting someone on your team and having that person be, well, us if you're in our area. Because you need someone on your team to constantly help assess the most important thing. Number one, when we talk about next level of what are we going to do now that we're getting a mindset, we want to implement. Number one priority is to make sure this thing that's trying to perceive and run and regulate your body is connected to your body without any interference from the 24 movable bones in your adult spine that are meant to surround and protect it. And if you don't know if the hips are level and the spine is straight from front to back, and you don't know where you're at in the curves of the spine from the side, in looking at the spine globally, you don't know why those individual bones are subluxating, crushing the nerves, basically creating blind spots to the mind where it's not allowing it to perceive what's going on in certain parts of the organ, so that it's having to compensate and make choices based on blind spot mapping. And it's doing the best it can every moment to adapt to the environment so that you can survive, provided another threat comes in, whether it's a virus or a bear or a robber, whatever. It's making all of these choices every second on a non-electrically perfect body. The longer that goes on, the more degeneration that happens, the worse that electrical connectivity goes down, and there's more static on the TV, more static on the radio, whatever, however you want to perceive it. And then your life is becoming more and more compensation until it can no longer compensate. Maybe you have a symptom. Maybe it's blood pressure problems. Maybe it's diabetes. Now knowing your mindset choices, you know that taking that pill just tricks the body chemically into false altering something. And then you're like, oh my gosh, that's not really fixing the problem. I've got to deal with what's causing it. And then that perception and that understanding of the electrical and role of life can only be assessed by a Max Living chiropractor in a proper way to then try to create a corrective care plan so that you can get your spine as close to 100%, so that your nervous system can function at 100%, giving you the rest of your life potential at 100%, so that all the other systems can function. So if you're not a patient, text that. If you are a patient, just text us and we'll get you rescheduled if you hadn't been in a little while or you just want to take a fresh look at things. And then moving on. So now that we take the priorities, we get everything. Whoops, wrong one. There we go. Sorry, I'm not the techie. So then we make sure that we have our body then electrically, mechanically, internally functioning with a properly functioning nervous system. Number two is then we start looking at the other systems, and we say, man, if I'm going to point my compass, I'm going to be traveling in life, walking down this road in the way that I want to be, getting the results that I want. What is it? Is it nutrition or exercise? I mean, you just flip a coin for most people in the levels of priority. And so exercise. The stats that I was talking about last week, those that exercise over 150 minutes, 220% less likely to be hospitalized, and ICU was down to 100, or people, reverse and stated exactly the way they said it, which was those that exercise 10 minutes or less were 220% more likely to be hospitalized, and then the 177% more likely to be in the ICU and 140% more likely to die simply from not exercising 150 or more minutes a week. So we know that it has that much of a role in the connection to, and I guess maybe somebody decided to call instead of text. So we understand it has that much of a connection just into the survival capability in this instance. But just like the connection, so many people don't make with like diabetes. And I want to step back. There's the connection that I lost earlier. Cumulative survival potential, we'll get back to the exercise, in that this current virus exacerbates and overwhelms the same inflammatory pathways that are worsening in metabolic syndrome, that are worsening. It exacerbates the same inflammatory pathways that happen throughout the body. This is why so many people are seeing in massive like aches, body aches that have just never been like any other flu. And sometimes that's it. Fever and body aches, maybe a little sinus drainage. Then some people are having headaches, and some people are having, all these things. Nausea, digestive issues. Some people are having the respiratory issues. Folks, these are all wake-up calls for those of us to say, just like in pregnancy, if a woman gets gestational diabetes, what does the doctor say? Oh my goodness, you're on the edge of blood sugar and having diabetes in life, so you better exercise, lower your sugar, and get all that stuff under control, even if you church your regular weight, quote unquote. Because this massive weight gain puts such a stress on your body, the physiological demand overwhelms your body's ability to manage its blood sugar. And this is leading you into preeclampsia and having all these things. And it's for the life of you and your baby. Whoa. That's the wake-up call that we should be using the same way with COVID or anything else. How bad was it on you? Now we've probably all had it once or twice, I know we have. And so the fact is that the worst things, it's an eye-opening experience as to the things that were, and we should be educating people about, okay, wow, you must have a lot of inflammatory pathways that this virus then exacerbated that affected your joints. So you're having a lot of joint inflammation. What are you going to do to improve that? Oh, it was the digestive stuff. So, wow, obviously your weakness is the digestive system. Your weakness was the cardiovascular system. Your weakness was the respiratory system. Coming out of that, how are we going to improve your cumulative survival potential based on your assessment of exercise? Well, start where your level is. I think the most important thing is I love Max T3. I love high intensity interval training done outside. And maxT3.com, $20, lifetime worth of videos that you can watch on your phone. That's on the side. If you have a magnet, I stick it on the side of my car, and there I am out there in the parking lot working out. Y'all have probably driven by and seen me. But the fact is that it's done in a way that improves and reduces. Another patient question yesterday: how can I make that? Man, my blood pressure's been really high lately, and it's starting to creep up, and it's getting worse. How can I deal with that? Standard question. How often are you exercising? And are you doing any high intensity interval training? Oh gosh. Quit using my treadmill, gotten out of the rhythm. Life's been stressful lately, the holidays, and then had family members sick. And unfortunately, they had a family member pass away. And it's been high levels of stress, right? The reasons we typically get booted out of our routines, extra stress. And in times of extra stress, that's when we need the things that keep us healthy the most. But yet those are the things that we most often cut out. Ironic, right? Silly, not life supporting. Maybe we should cut out the sugar and the extra whatever that was just filler. Things that we were doing, maybe the TV time, maybe the wind down time, maybe the whatever, and then keep the exercise and keep the better nutrition. So when we look at this, the reason I said the inflammatory pathways was this stress pathway And getting back to exercise, exercising with the high intensity interval training has been shown to reduce the cortisol levels, the stress hormone levels, the most. Better than long interval training, better than weight training, better than it's about these ramped up peaks and valleys that allow us to have the best burn off of that cortisol hormone, thus reducing the inflammatory pathways associated with metabolic syndrome better than. So just like getting back to the diabetic patient who had hey, what are we doing? Well, how are you measuring your blood sugar? Is it just you take it in the morning? You taking it after lunch, or you taking it in the evening before you go to bed? And then what are you going to do to improve it? What are you going to change? So if we move into nutrition and that high fructose corn syrup stuff that they were, the research they were looking at, saying how it reduces the white blood cell activity by around 50%. It does it for like 5 hours when you reach a certain threshold in a human being. And therefore, this has a long-term implication in hospitals and in the, improving the outcomes, again, to reduce these inflammatory pathways. So in diabetics, this is even more important information so that you can say, hey, I'm going to, like we did with my patient, okay, let's just take a week's worth of readings. Bam, we've got our baseline. Now, the next 30 days, we're going to have you exercise 30 minutes after lunch. And I think we said we're going to do it for 2 weeks. So we're going to do 2 weeks of you're going to exercise for 30 minutes after lunch, because that was when his blood sugars were the worst, was an hour after every lunch. We were just massive swings. So, okay, let's burn it off. Skeletal muscle consumes 80% of blood sugar. So let's use your skeletal muscle to burn off that incoming nutrition without any typical changes. We're not going to try to change nutrition yet. We're going to see what we can change just with the exercise. Bam, we're measuring it. Now we're going to do that for a couple of weeks. We're going to take another measurements and log that and then see how that did. And then we can measure how that affects his PM blood sugars. Those were the next highest. And then does that help throughout the day? Does it help with morning, or does it just help with that lunch? Don't know. We're going to measure it with him. And then we'll go through and we'll make changes nutritionally. Who's on your team doing that? Who's that person who's constantly helping you evaluate you and coming up with these things and then holding you accountable? Again, why everyone should have a Max Living chiropractor on their team. If you're not in the tri-state area and you're picking this up from somewhere else, then hey, maxliving.com. Chiropractor near me. Find one. Not just chiropractor, Max Living chiropractor near me. And so then we look at the exercise and the nutrition. Is it pointing you in the direction that you want? Step back and say, okay, then I've identified something that's not getting me the results I want. What do I need to start doing? What do I need to stop doing? And then what do I need to keep doing? I think that's a great evaluation in anything, because obviously there's some things that you're probably doing right. Otherwise you wouldn't still be here. So what are those things? Give yourself some props and say, these are the things that I'm going to keep. What is the most? I know I need to stop this or reduce it. And then what do I need to start doing? What am I going to stop? What am I going to keep? What am I going to start? In nutrition, in exercise, in toxicity, which is that last essential. What are you going to do? And then just do those things. But what you don't know is killing you, you don't know. So again, it's about the checkups. It's about real blood work to measure real things, to then have someone sit down with you and say, this is what it's showing us, with the things like cortisol levels and, what's your insulin levels at that blood sugar that you have. So maybe you are at, 90 on your blood sugar, but hey, your insulin's like at, 15 or something, high, to try to keep you there. You're diabetic. Whether or not your blood sugar's there yet, your body hormonally, endocrinely is that way. And if you aren't measuring it, you don't know it. And if you don't have someone on your team evaluating it, talking to you and helping guide it and hold it accountable, then we're passing down a legacy of disease, and it runs in my family and all of these things out of poor mindset because no one's managing what matters and measuring the things that determine how much margin for error we have on the inside and what we can sustain, because everybody's just being told if you feel good, you're okay. And pretty people drop dead all the time. And the reality is this matters. You matter. Your life quality matters. What you hand down to your children from a mindset standpoint matters because it determines they want to be the most like you. Subconsciously, they want that, So we have to really get down to what matters. And that's what we want to be here in the tri-state area for everybody. So again, just text new patient or use that number and say, I need a new appointment, and we'll get you scheduled in. And if not, maxliving.com, find a chiropractor near me and get on board with the team that is helping take you in the direction that your compass is pointing. Up here, you know what you want. We need to plan how to get there. What are you going to start doing? What are you going to stop doing? What are you going to keep doing in nutrition, exercise, toxicity? What are you going to do in your mindset to continue to develop? Right? And then I had a patient, 80-year-old. Let's see how much time I got. Yes. 80-year-old. Goes to the gym 5 days a week, comes in here, staying healthy, doing all kinds of great things, and still has a high level of function, great mind. Said, hey, man, listen to Toby Keith. Don't let the old man in. Pass that on to you. I did. Thought it was great. It was the idea of how old would you be if you didn't know how old you were. Mindset matters, folks. Love you, and hope to see you again next week on Health Second Opinion.